Hello and welcome to Cosmos FM. This is Despina Afentouli, and today we'll be talking about Seven, a documentary theater piece on extraordinary women from across the globe who work for human rights. Our guest today is an award-winning theater director who is an American of Greek descent. Since 2018, she is the Juilliard School Director of Drama and the first woman director of the Drama Division. She was teaching the practice of acting and directing at the Yale School of Drama and was a resident director at the Yale Repertory Theater for about 20 years. Other credits include productions at Lincoln Center Theater, Manhattan Theater Club, Dallas Theater Center, Denver Center, and Portland Stage. She was a Princess Grace Foundation Fellowship receiver and was awarded the foundation's prestigious statuette. She was also awarded a Princess Grace Foundation Works in Progress residency. She is the president of the executive board of the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome to our show Mrs. Evan Yionoulis. Evan, thank you so much for having me in your office at Juilliard School in Manhattan.
It's very nice to be with you.
So please tell us more about the documentary theater Seven. What is this play about?
The play was born out of a group of women that were working with Vital Voices, which is a non-governmental organization that Hillary Clinton actually started when she was First Lady. And the idea of the organization is to support women throughout the world, and that those women support other women, and that those women support other women and support other women. So Carol Mack, Susan Yankowitz, Anna Devere Smith, and other playwrights went out and each interviewed a woman who was working for human rights in some ways. And there was Musa Kua, who is a Cambodian opposition parliamentarian, Inez McCormick, who helped broker the agreement between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. There were women who worked for human rights in Afghanistan, in Russia, the first battered women's shelters and women's hotlines, Guatemalan senator. So all of these women were interviewed. Their interviews were interwoven into a theater piece, and we took it actually around the world to raise awareness about the work that women were doing and the work that still needed to be done.
So we have 7 cities, 7 women. What inspired you most about these 7 stories?
Well, I think that these particular women not only were helping others, but they were, many of them were under threat of death from political forces in their home countries who didn't want them to do the work that they were doing. The battered women's husbands didn't want them helping them. The government in Afghanistan was worried that they were distributing propaganda in the midwifery kits that they were giving. So these were women who really put themselves on the line to help other women. So these were very inspiring stories, and we took them to various venues all over the world, from London to New Delhi to Deauville in France, plus Washington, New York, Boston. And it was very exciting to see the impact that storytelling can have on people's lives. And we got to meet the real women on whose stories this piece was based. And it was a very wonderful time in my life as we were working on this piece. And now it's been published, and the piece is being done in colleges and universities and also in community theaters all over the world. And there have been male parliamentarians in certain countries playing these roles. It's been a great vehicle to talk about the work that still needs to be done to ensure that human rights are respected throughout the world.
Is it just about human rights or about gender equality issues?
Well, I think that they're operating off of that women's rights are human rights, and that when women and communities are respected and strong, that whole communities thrive. And when the opposite is the case, the opposite is the case. So, but there were particularly women's stories in terms of human trafficking, in terms of domestic abuse, and in other cases, economic issues as well.
And would like to ask you whether you've noticed that women face the same problems no matter where they live in the world.
I think that there are different degrees of problems. I think there's certain issues that are particular to certain countries, but I think that there are a lot of hidden issues that pervade internationally. I mean, I think when you think of the United States, you don't think of human trafficking, but of course that exists here as it exists in other countries. And that there are women's reproductive rights are under attack in this country as they are in other countries. There's domestic abuse in this country. There's political corruption in this country. And hopefully there's the force for good to try to overcome some of these things.
So how current are these issues? Why did you decide to make a piece on extraordinary women about human rights?
I think the impulse was to tell these stories that have not been heard and to bring light to these women's work. And also, on a very practical level, one of the things that the Vital Voices organization tries to do is to bring awareness to certain advocates' work in a way that will help keep them alive. And that if the international community is aware of their work, then they'll be less likely to be murdered in their own countries. I hate to put it that starkly, but that was the situation with some of these brave women.
Can you name them?
So, from Russia, Marina Pisklakova-Parker. From Cambodia, Musa Kua. From Guatemala, Annabella de Leon. From Northern Ireland, Inez McCormack, and she unfortunately passed away in 2013. But Farida Azizi from Afghanistan, Hafsat Abiola from Nigeria, and Mukhtar Mai from Pakistan. So these were the 7 women profiled.
How long did it take you to make that play?
Well, the piece was worked on by the writers before I was involved with the project. So they did these interviews, they made monologues, and then they worked involved with the project. So they did these interviews, they made monologues, and then they worked to interweave them. The final work with them in shaping the piece for the theater and for the tours that we took it on.
And what was the most challenging part while you were making 7, and how did you deal with it?
I guess the main thing in creating a piece like this was to get the proportion of the stories to balance so that you could follow these 7 women's stories through the piece, getting a chance to spend enough time with them to really get to know them, but also to find out how the stories were shared. And that's one of the things that I found in directing the piece, that even though these interviews were done separately, that it was really a conversation. It was a conversation about these women's shared challenges, about the danger they were in, the times that they felt that they couldn't go on and yet they did go on, and that there's a kind of a solidarity and a strength that comes from the numbers and from hearing that other people are doing the same kind of work. And, from the practical sharing of best practices to actually just the moral support.
What is the message you would like to convey to the audience through 7, actually?
Well, I think with 7 that we were trying to get people to be aware of what's going on throughout the world and to ask people to support these women and groups that support these women tangibly, through their own efforts in their own communities and through financial support to some of these organizations that are doing this important work for human rights.
May I ask if there were any men involved with this project?
There were the 7 original women, the 7 playwrights, the 7 actors, and me. And we occasionally had a male lighting designer, and we also had women lighting designers. And we had a production coordinator who was also a woman, and Vital Voices was run quite primarily by women. But we always, the women themselves, when the real women, as we call them, the subjects of the play, spoke, they made it clear that men are very important in the struggle, and that having men as allies and men to speak up and men to support these things is very important, and that we can't do anything alone.
To have more balance in society, we need both, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned before that you've presented this play, Seven, in many countries around the world, including New York. And I'd like to ask you whether you've presented this play in Greece, or if you're planning to play this play to an open audience here in New York again.
Right now there aren't any plans for that, but I would love to continue the journey. But as I say, a lot of people are doing the play now that it's been published, and that's really wonderful.
What about Greece?
I would love to do it in Greece. Yes, if anybody wants us to do it in Greece, we will be there, definitely.
I'm a company man trying to earn my pay. I've sold my soul to the company way. Well, I make my rent, but little more, and what's left gets spent at the company store. Company man, I'm a company man. I do what I can, 'cause I'm a company man. Folks all giving me the evil eye when they see my company truck pass by. I'm just trying to make a living as best I can, but there ain't no mercy for a company man. Company man, I'm a company man. Gotta do what I can, 'cause I'm a company man. Well, the farmer gets sick and the fields turn to dust. When the poor soul croaks, the farm goes bust. When the widow can't keep up the payments, then that's when the company sends me in. Company man, I'm a company man. I take the company stand, 'cause I'm a company man. Out of the kitchen as fast as she can, little old lady with a frying pan. She puts a dent up beside my head, down in the dust and left for dead. And that's all she wrote for the company man. Yeah, I'm down in the dust with blood on my face, but there's always some fool bound to take my place. Always a company man. Company man, I'm a company man. Scramble my brains with a frying pan. So the widow keeps the farm for one more day, and I leave my family nothing but bills to pay. And I guess it won't be too long before another company man visits my front door. My front door. 'Cause now you see, I'm dead and poor, and my family's gonna sleep on the hard dirt floor of their very own Hoovertown mansion, the pension plan for many a retired company man. So God bless the company man. Woo! Company man, I'm a company man. Got a funeral to plan for the company man. A company man, I'm a company man. Gotta do what I can, 'cause I'm a company man. Gotta do what I can, 'cause I'm a company man.
So you told me before that your background is Greek, right?
Yes.
So would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, well, my both sets of my grandparents were from Greece. My mother's parents were from a little mountain town in Thessaly, Ellinopyrgo. And my father's father was from Samos, and his mother was from Smyrna. And they all four of them came to the United States in the 1920s, and they ended up in a small tobacco town in eastern North Carolina. And there were 2 or 3 Greek families there. My grandmother was the youngest of 8 daughters, and her eldest sister was there. And my father's mother also was there with her sister and their husbands. And it was, I loved spending time at my grandmother's house and, with the cooking and the talking. And, it was a wonderful community there.
So was anyone in your family into arts?
My father wanted to be a painter. He was an interior designer, so he was very artistic. And my mother was a writer and editor. She did technical writing for the School of Engineering at North Carolina State. So we lived in Raleigh when I grew up. So they loved the theater and took us to concerts and all of those things.
And how did you discover your passion in theater?
I guess I discovered it from going to see things. And we used to, I had one of those typical theatrical childhoods, putting on shows on the back porch. My father put a curtain on the back porch, and we invited people from the neighborhood over to see shows. I remember that from being, from 5 years old. And then I wrote little plays and starred in them and directed them all through school. And then finally, when I got to high school, I started acting in plays. And then when I went to college, I started directing. And I've been directing since.
And while I was reading about, your work and your biography, I've read that you have collaborated with Mike Yionoulis, who obviously is your brother. And you collaborated with your brother on music theater pieces. And I'd like to ask you about this collaboration and why you think music is crucial in plays.
Yeah, I think that music can contribute a great deal to theatrical experiences, whether in a play, in transitions, to create a sense of the forward motion for a play or the emotional feeling of a play. And one of the pieces that we're working on right now is called Red Hand Guitar, and it's about 4 generations of American musicians from the Dust Bowl of the 1930s to a Dust Bowl of the not-too-distant future. And music is involved in that because these are the musicians, and they play. The music features in the piece very strongly. So we're very excited about that. But I've been collaborating with him for many, many years now.
And how is this collaboration?
It's great. I think we really have a shorthand after all of these years, and I really trust him and trust his artistry, and he knows that. So, if it's a play, I might have some ideas about the direction that I want it to go, and as you know, it's very hard to describe music in words, so sometimes there's a lot of trial and error to say, oh, this is what I was really thinking. And then in the musical work where he's writing songs, that's really joyous. And he writes them, and he writes some wonderful lyrics. And we work together on structuring the structure of the entire piece.
I've noticed that amongst others, you have adapted the ancient Greek tragedy, Medea, as we call it, which was written by Euripides. And I'd like to ask you, to what extent did your Hellenic background contribute to your love in arts as well?
I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a passion that comes from my Greek background that I think is given a great outlet in the theater for me. I know that when I got to finally go to Greece and see those theaters and see how nature and, in those amphitheater settings, everything suddenly made sense to me. So I don't know if my Greek heritage helped me understand Medea, but I think the the music in the church, and we used to have Greek dances, and my parents loved to dance. I think that there is a sort of theatrical part of that is something about being Greek.
And you studied at Yale University. And I'd like to ask you, how important is it to have theater education?
I got my bachelor's at Yale in literature with theater studies, and then I went on to get a master's in directing at Yale School of Drama, whereas, as you said, I ended up teaching for 20 years later. I returned to teach there. I think that theater education is useful for everyone. I think it's important in the schools. I think it's important in teaching empathy, in looking at the world from another person's perspective and trying to step into those shoes for a while. I think it also helps kids learn how to speak up, to learn to express themselves. I am now, in heading this program, reading a lot of application essays, and it's wonderful to read how theater has impacted many people's lives and given them a refuge from some of the struggles in their young lives.
The image in my head, the thought that makes me sweat, please help me to forget. I wish that I were dead, but I can't stop breathing yet, so help me to forget. Help me to forget, 'cause I know she's doing well. She's not the one alone, and I'm quickly losing hope of ever going home. Please let me forget. I wanna know your name, pretend we never met. It's like we never met. But I need you just the same, so don't you go just yet. I need you, don't go yet. So help me to forget. 'Cause I know she's doing well. She's not the one alone, and I'm quickly losing hope of ever going home. Please let me forget. So help me to forget, 'cause I know she's doing well. She's not the one alone, and I'm quickly losing hope of never going home. So please let me forget. The image in my head, the thought that makes me sweat, please help me to forget.
So, as aforementioned, you were a professor in the practice of acting and directing at the Yale School of Drama for 20 years. I've read that you tell your students to find a way to wake up every morning as an artist What do you mean?
I think when I say that to my students, I'm generally talking about in the context of when they go into the professional world. And sometimes, for most people, the job of an artist is to try to get a job. You know, you're auditioning and you're working whatever job you're working to keep a roof over your head. And it's important to know that even though you may not be in rehearsal today or you may not be in performance today, that you're still an artist. You're going around observing nature, you're reading, you're treating yourself as someone who can look at the world with a creative perspective, and that's important even when you're at a Xerox machine or waitressing or whatever you're doing.
And I'd like to ask you, what is your teaching method in acting or directing?
I think the core of acting is listening and talking, and that it's that cycle of energy. So when we work in acting class, we work on what is the character listening to and what are they listening for, and how do they actively pursue their goals as the characters. And it's a method that's really been passed down from acting teacher to acting teacher. So it's not one of those named methods, but I would say it's listening and pursuing a goal.
And what is your advice to young aspiring theater directors?
Find a way to keep directing, that you really learn by doing, that it's wonderful if you get into a situation where you can have a mentor or a teacher to give you some pointers, but that it's like a pilot. You have to really put in the hours in the rehearsal room, and each play is different, each group of actors is different, and practice, practice, practice.
May I ask who was your mentor?
I had a lot of different kinds of mentors. I had wonderful teachers, of course, at Yale, who taught me a great deal. And I also think I had a teacher in high school who was my journalism teacher, actually, and we did the school newspaper. And she really taught me how to ask questions, which I think is really the basis of what actors and directors do in interrogating a script, and to think, well, why did this person do it, and what's the thing behind that? And so I would say that she was really, Sarah Houck is her name. And so there have been many mentors in my life.
And I would like to ask you, how was your transition from Yale School after 20 years to Juilliard School that we are right now?
Well, I was very lucky because these are two incredible programs, and each with great faculties and fantastic students. So I'm now director of the drama division, so I'm really providing the vision for the school in its drama education, and I'm loving it here.
Η συχνότητα του ελληνισμού στη Νέα Υόρκη. Κόσμος FM.
Welcome back to Cosmos FM. You're listening to our special program, which is devoted to Seven, a documentary theater piece on extraordinary women from across the globe who work for human rights. Our guest today is Evan Yionoulis, an award-winning theater director who is an American of Greek descent. Since 2018, she is the Juilliard School Director of Drama and the first woman director of the Drama Division. She was teaching the practice of acting and directing at the Yale School of Drama and was a resident director at Yale Repertory Theater for about 20 years. Other credits include productions at Lincoln Center Theater, Manhattan Theater Club, Dallas Theater Center, Denver Center, and Portland Stage. She was a Princess Grace Foundation Fellowship receiver and was awarded the foundation's prestigious statuette. She was also awarded a Princess Grace Foundation Works in Progress residency. She is the president of the executive board of the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society. The music we are listening to on this program is by Evan Yionoulis and her brother, Mike Yionoulis. So Evan, what do you like most about theater directing?
I love taking a text and really getting to know it and how it operates and finding what the action of the piece is and what world the human beings are inhabiting and what needs to be in that world to make the action happen. And then collaborating with first designers to make that environment that the actors are going to act in, and then to work with actors to bring it to life. So I love everything about directing.
And what is the difference between theater directing and film directing?
I think there are many commonalities, but I think that there are different vocabularies. I mean, in the theater, you have to create focus in different ways. You can't tell the audience where they need to look. You may need to make sure that wherever they look leads them back to the center of the story. And in film, of course, you have much more capability for precision in terms of what the audience is going to focus on, and there are a lot of other technical things that you need to know. But I think they're both forms of storytelling. I haven't done very much film at all. I've just made a couple of pieces, but I'd like to do more of it. It's very exciting.
Have you ever performed in Greece?
No, I haven't. I haven't done any work in Greece.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, I would love to.
And you've been awarded as a director of new plays and classics, not only in New York, but also across the United States. How does it feel to win an award?
It's always wonderful to win an award, and I think it's always humbling because in any one year there are many strong productions, and I think a competition between artists doesn't make any sense because each piece is its own thing, has its own rules, and there can be many different types of excellence. But it's always gratifying to get your work recognized. And I've been happy to have the productions that I've done that were recognized, to feel that they were strong work, and just to know that there's other strong work that's not going to get recognized, but that you can't wait for an award to give you your feeling of self-worth.
So what are your future plans?
Well, I'm excited about the future of the drama division here at Juilliard and all the work that we're doing to develop the next generation of actors and playwrights. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with my brother on Red Hen Guitar and some other pieces that we have. And who knows what the future will bring.
And would you like to send a message to the listeners of Cosmos FM?
Just to say that it's been wonderful to speak to you, and that I would encourage them to support women who are working for human rights, and apropos of our conversation about Seven, and also to support drama education for all levels, and that I encourage them, if they'd like to try being on stage, that it's a lot of fun and that you don't have to be a professional to enjoy the theater and to get the benefits of community that it brings. I think in our increasingly technological world, it's wonderful to be in a room and breathe the same air with other human beings. And the theater allows, from the ancient Greek times to today, for people to do that and gather in community, which we need so much right now.
So I would like to thank you so much for your beautiful story and for giving us so much information about theater.
Well, thank you. It was lovely to speak with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Evan. It's been a pleasure discussing with you.
Well, that's the end of our special program. You have just heard the well-accomplished American-born of Greek descent, theater director Evan Yionoulis. And this is Despina Afentouli. Thank you so much for listening to Cosmos FM. Γεια σας.
Hush, little baby, don't you fuss. The The Sandman, he comes for all of us. He knows when you're weary and too tired to sleep, with a kiss on the forehead and a promise to keep. So hush, hush, baby, don't cry. Hush, hush, the Sandman is nigh. He's coming to help you to sleep, with a kiss on the forehead and a promise to keep. The Sandman is nigh. He's coming, there's no need to weep, with a kiss on the forehead and a promise